On Friday, a federal judge issued a ruling in a case that we've been watching closely, and that's what's happening in Naperville with a gun ban that the plaintiffs in that case amended weeks ago to include the state of Illinois' gun and magazine ban. Well, after a hearing late January, the judge in that Northern District of Illinois federal courts handed down her ruling and essentially said that this gun ban is constitutional. Now, this is just one of multiple cases that we've been watching. Of course, this is the most furthest along case because this was filed back in September to challenge Naperville's gun ban. So they've already gone through a whole lot of different of the steps that cases take in federal court. But a couple of weeks ago, before they had a oral arguments in this case, the plaintiffs did open up their complaints to not just be about Naperville's gun ban, but also to be about the state of Illinois' gun ban. So this is the first federal court ruling that was issued on Illinois' gun ban. And the judge in this case, Virginia Kendall, she wrote that the stay was going to be in place upon the deposition of the plaintiff's motion and the temporary restraining order and preliminary injunction. Those were shot down on Friday. And some of what she had to say in her ruling was that assault weapons, quote, this is from the judge's ruling, assault weapons pose an exceptional danger more so than standard self-defense weapons such as handguns. High-capacity magazines share similar dangers, she wrote. She also went on to say the federal government banned assault weapons for 10 years. Today, 8 states, the District of Columbia, and numerous municipalities maintain assault weapons and high-capacity magazine bans as more jurisdictions weigh similar measures. She goes on to write that because assault weapons are particularly dangerous weapons and high-capacity magazines are particularly dangerous weapon accessories, their regulation accords with history and tradition. So you've got this judge now in this federal case upholding the gun ban, and I do have the plaintiff's attorney. They eventually did get back to me over the weekend and say that they do plan to appeal. What that means for other cases that are pending in federal court, it'll be interesting to see how this plays out, because you've got 4 cases in the Southern District of Illinois. One from the Crawford County state case that was transferred to federal court, one from the Illinois State Rifle Association, one from the National Shooting Sports Foundation, and one from the Illinois Gun Rights Alliance. And we'll get some reaction now from one of the groups, part of one of those lawsuits, John Boch. He joins us here from Gun Save Life. John, let's go ahead and get your reaction initially here to the Naperville decision and what this ultimately means.
Well, good morning, Greg. The Naperville decision, that judge wrote a word salad for her opinion on that case. She cited a 2-part balancing test, which has been struck down by Bruin. She says she admits that that's been struck down, but then she goes and uses the 2-part balancing test again to talk about how these guns are supposedly extra dangerous. And this is the same judge that was overruled by the Seventh Circuit Court of Appeals a few years ago with the Rhonda Ezell case about the ban on ranges in the city of Chicago. She was struck down twice by the Seventh Circuit Court of Appeals. So she's got a long history of getting it wrong on guns. So I'm not too worried about this case being problematic. It'll be overturned when it gets up to the Seventh Circuit Court of Appeals.
So does this have any ramifications on the Southern District judge that has 4 cases right now, one of which being the case that you're a part of with the Illinois Gun Rights Alliance?
Well, I am not a lawyer, but I don't believe so. The Seventh, this is just a request for preliminary injunction. This isn't a final decision on the case. And I think a different judge is going to have a very different view on the Bruin decision and its impact on the laws that Illinois has passed. And quite frankly, the Mrs. Kendall is just writing word salad for decisions, and she was overturned twice on Ezell. She'll be overturned on this one. It's just a preliminary injunction at this stage, and they may get the preliminary injunction from the Seventh Circuit Court of Appeals when they go to appeal her decision.
You know, you do have some of the gun rights groups essentially saying, hey, this is just one case. You got 4 others, but you've got the gun control groups out there, GPAC being one of them, State Representative Bob Morgan, reiterating what this judge had to say. I mean, how predictable is it that we're going to see these types of statements progress until there's some finality either in the appellate courts or if it gets all the way up to the U.S. Supreme Court?
Well, of course, Bob Morgan and the rest of them are giddy about this because they've lost in court every single time up until now. And ironically, at the oral arguments for this Naperville case, the Illinois Attorney General didn't even send anybody to the oral arguments. So the only case that Kwame could arguably say that he's won in terms of defending this ban that the Illinois legislature passed was the one he didn't show up at. That just goes to show you how well or poorly, depending on how you look at it, his attorneys are doing defending this new law in court. And again, this is going to be overturned at the Seventh Circuit Court of Appeals. I wouldn't be surprised to see the Seventh Circuit Court of Appeals grant the injunction over Judge Kendall's head. And it's going to be interesting to watch her get slapped down a third time because obviously, the Seventh Circuit, the Court of Appeals, knows what the Bruin case means. It knows what the Second Amendment says, and that's going to be that. That's all there is. But yes, they're going to be giddy about this. It's the only good news they've had since they passed the law.
John Boch with us from Gun Save Life. Tell us, for those who are curious as to the rationale that you're saying that the appellate court will uphold, that this judge in the Northern District didn't adhere to, the idea of this balancing of interests, which she seemed to do quite a bit, throwing out a whole bunch of statistics about how many, so-called assault weapons are used in certain crimes, and using those statistics as a measure to try to, justify the balance of public safety over rights. But talk about how that's no longer the precedent, and how should people listening better understand the difference between the balancing of interests and what was spelled out in the precedent from the New York Bruin case?
Well, we've been using this two-part balancing test now for 12 or 15 years, ever since the Heller decision came down. And so these judges are used to it, and there's a whole lot of case law that was good case law up until Bruin came down last summer when Justice Thomas wrote, there is no more two-step balancing test. The Second Amendment means what it says what it means, and the only considerations or evaluations of gun laws now are text, history, and tradition, and the history being the history of the 1790s during the colonial period, or possibly during the Reconstruction period after the Civil War. And tradition, it's the tradition. It's not an outlier gun law from one particular city or one particular state. It's laws that were in common practice across the colonies back in the 1790s. And there were no gun bans in the 1790s and all that good stuff. And it's just more of the same from our Illinois General Assembly passing these laws, giving gun owners a really hard time while making it really soft and easy for the criminals. And look at the crime in Chicago. We've got just outrageous crime in Chicago. But in Florida, under Ron DeSantis, they've got the lowest violent crime rate in 50 years. Ron DeSantis is doing something right in Florida, and it's not passing gun bans and giving gun owners a hard time.
John Boch, Gun Save Life, greatly appreciate you taking the time with us today, and we'll definitely be connecting again in the near future, all right?
Thanks, Greg. You take care. Have a great day.
You too. It is Springfield's Morning News on 92.7 WMAY. I want to get your calls next in reaction to what happened out of Naperville. So get the calls going, 217-629-7970. Again, 217-629-7970. Or you can email me, bishoponair@gmail.com. And I want to get your thoughts on the Naperville decision that was issued on Friday, where a judge essentially said that assault weapons are dangerous and the federal and state governments could ban them. And see if this ultimately heads up to the appellate court, how quick that happens, and what's going to happen in the Southern District of Illinois, where we've still got, a handful of days here, a little over a week, before the state has to reply to the 4 different cases that there are that are challenging the state's gun ban and the magazine ban in 3 of those cases. And you've, of course, got the requirements that the judge ordering the state and the Southern District, they have to provide an entire list of all items banned. Not just firearms, but all items banned. Which is interesting because the case that's been brought by Illinois Gun Rights Alliance, including the federal firearms licensees of Illinois, they're challenging the gun and parts ban, not the gun and magazine ban, while the other three cases are challenging the gun and magazine ban. But all of this still coming together in the Southern District. But in the Northern District, a case that was much further along because Naperville's ban was in place last year and plaintiffs sued in September. Then the plaintiffs amended their complaints to wrap in the state ban as well, so it was a much further along case. With the case amended, the federal judge in that Northern District of Illinois out of Chicago siding with Naperville and the state with their gun ban. Your thoughts on that? You think it's going to be overturned? Good morning. You're on WMAY.
I think it's best said from our cold dead hands was what was that, Charles Heston or Charlton Heston?
Yep.
Yes, I think that's probably going to be the T-shirt of the week. Thank you.
You think that T-shirt is going to be proliferating all over the place? Gotcha. 217-629-7970. Let's get your thoughts. Good morning. You're on WMAY.
Yeah, I think some of the statements from the Naperville judge would lend it to be overturned, especially if she has a history of it being overturned. And it's interesting that people in government that have things overturned or don't do a good job just continue to keep their job and their position, and that's extremely frustrating.
Well, and these federal judges are appointed. This one was appointed by Bush Jr., but she's been in office since 2006 or something like that. So you think that if they have a history of having their rulings overturned, they should be ejected somehow?
Yeah, I mean, at this point, like if I did my job like that and somebody above me constantly said, no, you're wrong,
yep,
then I wouldn't have my job.
Yeah, interesting thought there. Appreciate the call. We'll take one last one before the top of the hour here. You've got about 40 seconds. Go.
Well, stupid judges are extremely dangerous, and they need to be disbarred.
Yeah, you kept that short and sweet. So yeah, I think, but again, it's maybe there's an impeachment process that Congress can take. I don't know that process. I just know that these federal judges ultimately are appointed, such as the appointee down in the Southern District is an appointee of a Republican. So how that's going to play out in the Southern District, we will keep a close eye on. But we've been updating you each and every day. We've been on the air with new developments in the cases against Illinois' gun and magazine ban, because now we're a month and 10 days. October 1st, when the window opens for you to be required to file with state police the list of guns that you have that are banned, that starts October 1st. Deadline January 1st of 2023. Are these cases going to advance and block the law before then? We shall watch and see. It's 7 o'clock.
From the Fly SPI Studios.